Hi, I'm Richard Maraj, Senior Minister at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center, and I want to thank you for visiting our website and for tuning in to today's message. If you feel inspired by today's talk, I really encourage you to make a donation by hitting that button below and making a contribution to this ministry. It'll allow us to continue these messages online and to do the great work we do here at Unity of Phoenix, which is to inspire people to live better lives. So thanks for tuning in, thanks for your support, and we hope to see you at a Sunday real soon.
Morning again, everyone. And a shout out to everybody who tunes in and watches us online. Welcome, welcome. So I wasn't here last week, so I couldn't open with a joke. So you're getting a double dose today, like it or not. Here it comes. So how do trees get online? They log on. Ooh. Why did the pig leave the party? Everyone thought he was a bore. Okay. What did the janitor yell when he jumped out of the closet? Supplies. All right. Since it's Canada Day, I think it's only fair that I do a couple of Canadian jokes. So here we go. What grades do most Canadians get when they take their tests? A. All right. You're getting ahead of me. How do you get a Canadian to apologize? You step on their foot. Okay, here's a big finish. Who would win a mud wrestling match between Celine Dion and Shania Twain? We all would. All right. All right. So today we're talking about freedom. We're talking about freedom today. And, you know, what I love about this country is that everybody loves their freedom, is proud to have their freedom, that regularly acknowledges and thanks all those who have fought and given their lives to guarantee our freedoms. We regularly celebrate our freedom with joy, with passion, and gratitude. You know, the 4th of July is the celebration of the Declaration of Independence that was created and passed on July the 4th, 1776, to support and guarantee our rights and our freedom to have a better life. And our forefathers really believed that freedom was the foundation and the prerequisite to have a better life. How many people would agree that freedom is a foundation and prerequisite to having a better life? You know, we are free to pursue our dreams, to pursue happiness. We are free. We have freedom of expression. We have freedom of speech, freedom to practice our religion, freedom to gather, freedom of education, freedom to tell really bad jokes. We are really free in this place. You know, and I think sometimes, you know, we might take for granted, you know, our freedom. I am free. Let's say that together. I am free. Just take a deep breath. And what does freedom feel like to you? What does this beautiful thing, freedom, mean to you? I am free to pursue my dreams. Together, I am free to pursue my dreams. I am free to create the kind of life I want. Together, I am free to create the life. I am free. Together, I am free. Just take a deep breath into that. And what does freedom mean to you, and how does it feel? And how do you express it in your life? You know, freedom is a great blessing. It is a great privilege. It's a great opportunity, and it is the key to living a happier life and a better life. Interesting, I found a study about the happiest countries in the world, and it's based on a number of criteria. Freedom is one, education, money, health, and it also self-reporting of do you feel happy? And here are the top 10 countries that report and are as the happiest. Finland, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, Switzerland, the Netherlands, Canada, New Zealand, Sweden, and Australia. The United States was 14th, and then the following year dropped to 18th. The United States is the most powerful country in the world, the most wealthy country in the world, and yet as we are even getting wealthier, that we are reporting to be unhappier. That we have this freedom, power, and wealth, And the levels of reported and experienced happiness is actually on the decline. That there's more depression, more drug use, more suicides. We have this unalienable right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and yet many, and too many, are feeling trapped, stuck, limited, unhappy, held back, and feel like something is blocking the kind of life that I really want to live. And so the question for all of us to examine is to ask ourselves, where in my life am I not feeling free? Where in my life have I been pursuing my dreams and happiness and not, experiencing it or feeling too far and distant from it? Benjamin Franklin was giving a very moving speech on the guarantees of the Constitution when a heckler shouted out, these words don't mean a thing. Where's all this happiness you say you guarantee us? And Franklin smiled and he said, my friend, the Constitution only guarantees the American people the freedom and the right to pursue happiness. You have to do the work and catch it yourself. And the fact is, we all have the gift of freedom and we love it. My question for us to consider now is, how well are we using this gift of freedom? Are we using it as consciously and intentionally and effectively as we can to create this better life and to pursue and experience greater happiness? And so what I want to explore today is, as we celebrate our freedom, is to ask, how can we better utilize our freedom? The thing I love is the Declaration of Independence. That is about as powerful as it sounds. You hear the word declaration? It means to affirm, to proclaim, to call forth, and to accept. The Bible says, declare a thing and it will be established for you. So there's a powerful thing in declaring our freedom, in declaring our independence. George Bernard Shaw once said this. He said, most people say they want freedom, but they don't really want to be free. They prefer to moan and blame and complain because freedom means responsibility. And that's the thing that we dread most in life, is to be fully responsible for our lives. Let me just skip to something first, and that is, I believe that we are hardwired for independence. That I believe there is a spirit of independence in each and every one of us from the time we're born that is always urging and desiring to express more of itself and more of our desires and what we want. And the example I'll give you, when a child is born, a baby is 100% dependent. It couldn't survive. It needs to be cared for, food and protection and so on. And yet as it grows, they hit the terrible twos, and suddenly this fully dependent creature starts to want to exert their will. Honey, eat this. No. Do this. They do the opposite. Why? Mine. And they get into this. Why? Because there's a spirit in them that they want to explore autonomy, independence, their own capability, and their own power. And what seems interesting is a child that, even though they are dependent, strives for independence with excitement to discover what that's like. But as we become adults, we actually get scared of responsibility. It terrifies us. Because sometimes we get scared of our own greatness. We let fear of failure stop us from accepting responsibility and start blaming and using excuses and complaining and putting off our happiness because it's someone else's fault. So sometimes we don't want to own full responsibility for our power, for our greatness, because that feels a little like it's too overwhelming. That's a lot for us to take on. Ralph Waldo Emerson wrote a wonderful, famous essay called Self-Reliance. And in it he said, unless we accept responsibility for our lives, we will never know the fullness of our potential. We will never experience happiness, and we'll never experience fulfillment. That we need to own our power, own the full responsibility for our lives, to know that we're powerful, that we're resourceful, and that we are capable. That it is not a good use of our freedom to spend it complaining and blaming someone else. The best way to use our freedom is to accept our power, our responsibility, our capability, and our resourcefulness. In many ways, we take our freedom and we let our freedom get hijacked by giving it away, by complaining, blaming, and putting it on other people. In the book of Timothy, it says a beautiful line here. It says, God has not given us a spirit of fear and timidity, but a spirit of power, love, and self-discipline. In Galatians, it said, it is for freedom Christ set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let the burden again come onto you of the yoke of slavery. And it's saying, don't let your mind be a slave to the negative, a slave to blaming, a slave to the conditions and circumstances controlling our lives. Here's what Plato said. He said, the man who makes everything that leads to happiness depend on himself and not on others has adopted the very best plan for living a happy life. Responsibility isn't some burden. It is actually something that sets us free, that empowers us regardless of any condition or situation to say, I'm in charge. I have the authority to create the very best out of this situation for my life. Being totally free means being fully responsible. They are actually the same. Being totally free means being fully responsible. Then you realize there's nothing that can hold us back. I am powerful and responsible. Together? I am powerful and responsible. I am capable and resourceful. I am capable and resourceful. I am fully responsible for every area of my life. Together? I am fully responsible for every area of my life. The way we use our freedom is to make a declaration of our own independence by acknowledging that we're powerful, that we're responsible, that we're capable and resourceful for our lives. That if it is meant to be, it is up to me to create my level of happiness. But sometimes we get a little carried away with the independence thing, and that we are sometimes afraid to ask for help. But sometimes we get so independent, we don't admit we need help. We don't admit we're hurting. We're afraid to ask for help, thinking that people will perceive us as being weak and not able to take care of ourselves. We would rather tough it out or go without rather than admitting we need some help. We would sometimes shut off and pull away from people and isolate ourselves, thinking that means that I'm independent. But the truth is, no one does it alone. I cannot think of one single achievement that someone does in their life where they don't get some help. That, we cannot do it alone. Here's one of my favorite quotes from Martin Root. He said this: you have to do it for yourself, and you can't do it alone. You have to do it for yourself, and you can't do it alone. Everyone needs help. To be alone actually limits the level of life and love and joy and fulfillment we can speak. There are levels and dimensions of ourselves and our talents and qualities that cannot be experienced or expressed without other people. That we need each other. And to be engaged and to ask for help and to support is an important thing. No one does it. Even Jesus didn't do it by himself. Jesus had 12 disciples. Jesus needed his disciples. Jesus needed his disciples like Bruce Springsteen needs the E Street Band. Like Gladys Knight needed the Pips. Like Sonny needed Cher. Like Cheech needed Chong. Like Starsky needed Hutch. Like peanut butter needs jelly. Like Beauty needed the Beast. Like Chips needs salsa. That Sanford needs sun. Like Bert needed Ernie. Like Laverne needed Shirley. Like rum needs Coke. Like ham needs cheese. I think you're getting my point. Or maybe not. But the fact is, nobody does it alone. We need each other. When it says that in the beginning of the Lord's Prayer, our Father, you know what that means? There's only one God, and we're all connected. We're all brothers and sisters. That we all need each other. The best way to use our freedom is not to isolate ourselves, is to connect ourselves. So my question is, where in your life do you need some support that you haven't been willing to reach out and ask for? And whether it's from a family member or a friend or even a therapist, where is it that you're holding back on getting the kind of encouragement and support that you need. Where in your life you're not asking for what you really, really want. Because the only way people will know is if we reach out and ask. And where in your life can you give a little more? That you can consciously think of ways I can help that person or make a greater connection. Because we rob ourselves of freedom by not realizing that we're interdependent. We're not just independent, we're interdependent. We need each other to make our lives better for one another. One of the things I love about the candle lighting service that I think is so cool, we light off each other's candles, and that when you light off of someone else's candle and let someone light off of theirs, no one's light is diminished. That if I have a candle and I let you light off of it, it doesn't actually diminish my candle. In fact, it gives us both more light. So we need to be more interdependent. And the last thing I want to talk about is interdependence. So we make a declaration of independence and accept responsibility, of interdependence and know that we need to connect and support each other. But let's talk about interdependence. Sometimes I don't think we realize what an amazing power and spirit we all have in us. We have the power that created the sun, that intelligence that created every cell of our being, and yet we don't turn to it. We rather look outside ourselves for answers all the time rather than going into that place of wisdom, to that place that has, all of the power and the resources and answers we could ever need. That we don't realize that happiness is an inside job, that we don't spend enough time in the quiet, opening ourselves to that space. There's a power available for us to connect that's accessible 24/7, and yet we don't turn into it and tune into it as much. Scripture says over and over again, in all things, turn to God. Acknowledge God, trust God, seek God, ask God. All of these things pointing to that very source. Jesus, taught interdependence, to always seek that source before any and everything you do, before any decision, before any meeting, anything, before any goal or dream. Seek that energy and source. He said, I of myself can do nothing. But I go to the Father, and it is the Father within that does the work. It is to make ourselves an instrument and a vehicle and a channel. In Corinthians, it says, 2 Corinthians says, now the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. The freedom, really, it comes from ourselves. It comes from within us. And sometimes we don't want to turn to it. Reminds me of this guy who was working on this garden, and this pastor walks by, and the pastor says, hey, brother, that's a beautiful garden that you and God are working on together. And then the guy says, yeah, Father, but you should have seen what it looked like when God was working it alone. and just like that guy, sometimes there are things in our lives we don't even think about God. He didn't realize God provided the earth. That in that seed, God put the intelligence in that seed of whatever he was going to come up. And so often we think, don't turn to God unless we really need it. Don't turn to prayer. It is our greatest resource, and yet we make it a last resort instead of a first resource. So my question is, how much interdependence are you practicing in your life? And how many people know there's more space and room for you to have more interdependence? Okay, 3 of us. That's good. That's good. Okay. So here are some things that when we take time to consistently create a quiet space to allow Spirit to move through us, here are some things. The first one is that we tend to feel more inner peace. My father would pray every single night for all meals, and one of his lines he said consistently, he said that when we connect and love God, that we will experience the peace that surpasses all human understanding. That there is a peace that comes that is beyond words the more we connect in the quiet and silence with God. So the first is peace. That's what you get from interdependence. The second one is it helps us let go of the past. One of the things that destroys our peace and our freedom is when we're thinking about that dirty so-and-so and what they said, whatever grudge we're holding on to, what resentment or bitterness, that we're not really free in that moment. And the more we have interdependence, we're able to forgive and let that go, to release it to God, to be cleansed, to be purified of it, so we can really move forward and be free to live the life we want. Another thing that consistent interdependence does, it helps us to be true to ourselves. I don't know about you, but sometimes I get these really great ideas of thinking what I want, and that's what the perfect picture would look like. Then I work hard and I get it, and then I realize I didn't want that. I think there are many times we listen to our head or what culture tells us is the best thing rather than going into our spirit. But when we have interdependence, our soul will say, no, this is the best thing. Or maybe that's not the right thing. That we will be guided, to live a more authentic life, a life that is more true to ourselves when we are interdependent. Another one is to realize that happiness in life is now. So often we are waiting until this happens, waiting till we meet that one, waiting till we get the promotion. There's always a lot of waiting around. There's a whole lot of happiness going on now that we miss because we're looking ahead too far or we're waiting for something that isn't here. There's a lot of good stuff here. And when we're interdependent, I think we see more joys and we're more present to life. And then the final one is that when we're interdependent, we realize that freedom and a happier life is sometimes about being simpler and less. Sometimes we think a better life is always bigger, better, faster, higher, more. And sometimes it's maybe just simplifying. Life isn't about quantity, it's about quality. And sometimes reducing the amount of stuff we have and do will actually increase our level of enjoyment of the things that we have. We love to stack our calendars and pack everything in to live more life. But I think sometimes simplicity is a more effective way to feel more fulfillment. My brother Brian is professor at University of Alberta, and he got this promotion to be a dean of this small college. And he was teaching and being the dean, and he liked it. He got a nice bump in salary. And they were trying to groom him to be president of the university one day. And he realized after 5 years, he actually realized it sooner, but after 5 years, he wasn't happy. This was not what he was liking. And there was pressure and status of the president potentially and all this extra money, and he's got 6 kids, so that's not a bad thing to have some extra money. And he realized, no, that's not what makes me happy. And so he simplified and stepped down as the dean, and he teaches and he does research, and he's the happiest guy in the world. And he knows he left a lot of money there, but it didn't matter. Because sometimes we need to ask ourselves, what is going to make my soul happier? Why am I here, and what is the main way I'm here to make a difference in the world? Happiness is an inside job. And the more we become interdependent, the more our independence and interdependence will actually get better, because it is the foundation that makes all things possible. This 4th of July, we're going to celebrate our freedom like we do every year. And we should do that, and it's a great thing. But as we're celebrating our freedom, I want us all to pause and to think, how am I using this freedom? Am I using it in the wisest and best way to pursue the happiness that God and life has prepared for me? Make a declaration of your independence by accepting full responsibility for your life and realize that you are powerful, and free yourself from blame and complaining. Make a declaration of interdependence and know that we need one another. And don't be afraid to ask for help. And don't be afraid to be vulnerable and reach out to someone to make a deeper connection. And let's make a declaration of interdependence and to know the kingdom of God is within. Turn to God in all things, and God will make straight our paths. So as you celebrate your freedom to make a better life, as we surely use these gifts to become more happy, the only thing I can say to you is, may the 4th be with you.